Because yes, Hogwarts Legacy 2 once again confirmed by Warner Bros. This comes in this article from Variety. Let's see, priority. So basically what they're saying here is, and then I'm gonna kind of talk about some new info as well, and I'm gonna call in Dennis, who has way more Harry Potter knowledge than me. Like, I of course watched everything, I love the game. He read the books as well and all that stuff, so I think it's gonna be interesting to hear what he has to say. Let's first talk about all the news and the DLC rumors, and then see what we all think. Of course, if you have any input for what you think Hogwarts Legacy 2 is going to be about, drop it in the comments or in the chat. So here, at Warner Bros. Games, they're at work on the video game sequel to Hogwarts Legacy, which a very big priority for Warner Bros. Discovery's C-suite. And like, I don't think would have been talking about this sequel weren't for the fact that they are losing money on their games division big time. They talked about taking another $100 million loss because Multiverses is just not doing well. They relaunched it this year. It had a big peak, like more than 100,000 players on Steam. If you look at it now, it's like a few thousand. That game is sadly dead. And I think that's always with, like, for example, if Sony would bring back Concord, you cannot turn something that people just are not really, like, digging into something that works. Although, to be fair, more people were interested in Multiverse. They just were not able to, keep the interest of people. So yeah, things are not looking great. Suicide Squad, of course, earlier this year also wasn't really a surefire hit. Took a 200 million loss on that. That's why they're already talking about the sequel here. They're like, but don't worry, investors, we have Hogwarts Legacy 2. And of course, the first game now sold 30 million units, which is insane. So now, they also says that the game team has been coordinating some of the big picture storytelling elements in the Hogwarts Legacy sequel with the storylines that will play out in the Harry Potter HBO series, coming from Warner Bros. Television. This is kind of interesting because we know that it's really a Harry Potter HBO series. They're gonna do a retelling of the 7 books, and they're recasting like Harry and Hermione and all these characters. They have to be around the 9 to 11, and I was like, that seems very young, but that's of course how young these people were also when they started. So, very interesting. They're starting filming next year, and the show should launch in 2026. I think it's probably at the end of 2026, get around that Christmas feel, right? I think that would make sense for them, but we'll have to wait and see. If that means that the game will be out around 2026, if Warner could wave like a magic wand, I'm sure they wanted that, but I would be shocked because we also know, thanks to Insider Gaming, that an Hogwarts Legacy Definitive Edition is in development. Let's go here. Insider Gaming understands that a Hogwarts Legacy Definitive Edition is in development. Its content will also be sold as a separate DLC for those with the existing game. Again, 30 million units sold. So yeah, many have them already. I would be shocked if people... I mean, there are probably going to be people who will jump in with this Definitive Edition, but I think the DLC will mostly be sold separately. It should have around the... Let's zoom in a bit. 10 to 15 hours of additional content with a new story quest, side quest, activities, and outfits. And yeah, the price is still in flux. Probably around the $30 if I had to bet. This 10 to 15 hours sounds around that ballpark. I mean, Elden Ring was of course 40, but for example, the Cyberpunk DLC was 30. I think they're probably going for 30 if I had to bet. But yeah, they're working on that. Not alone though. Because we also learned earlier already, thanks to Bloomberg, that Jason Schreier's talking about behind the Suicide Squad, this year's biggest video game flop. I think Concord is actually the bigger flop right now. Sure, they took a 200 million loss, but Concord probably was like an even worse flop. So that's kind of crazy that Concord... because that game was like 200 million to develop as well. They, of course, made zero money on it. And, they bought the studio, which was not even in the 200 million number. Either way, many of the studio's employees, so at Rocksteady, are now helping to develop a new director's cut version of Hogwarts Legacy. So, yeah, the people inside Suicide Squad, at one point it was like, okay, the Suicide Squad, it's not going to happen. We still have, or like, it's not working out. We still have this roadmap announced for 4 seasons. So, yeah, we will kind of have to go through with that. Otherwise, I don't think people will like it. Maybe they would be like, people could take legal action or something. Because they really, when you finish Suicide Squad, it was like, and more is to come. And they could already see teasers for these characters and the sort of content they were going to plan. I do think that's like probably something that Warner and other companies just won't do anymore. Just don't announce a full year of content when you don't know if the game is doing well, unless you see like insane high pre-orders or something. Either way, the whole point is that if they're gonna launch DLC next year, because that's what Insider Gaming is reporting, then there are people inside Avalanche also working on the DLC, so not on the sequel. Sure, a lot of people probably started working on the sequel immediately in 2022 after Hogwarts Legacy 1 came out. Still, I think like 2026 is way too ambitious. That would be 3.5 years probably after Hogwarts Legacy 1. I think end of 2027 would make more sense. Maybe you then already have season 2 of the show or something, I don't know, but interesting stuff nevertheless. And then I want to call in Dennis, because I'm curious to hear, again, basically they are already saying what the, what the whole, or they're teasing what the second game will already be about by saying that they're coordinating with the, with the TV show, and that there will be some story, like big picture storytelling elements in the Hogwarts Legacy sequel with the storylines that will play out in the HBO series. So I think that already kind of teases the timeline and connections we can expect, while of course Hogwarts Legacy was like 100 years, if I'm not mistaken, right, Dennis, before Harry Potter?
I don't know if it was exactly 100 years,
It was
but it
like
was a long
1800
time
something. So
before it. I think you are right. Like we'll round about 100-year difference. Also, hello everyone.
hey,
Uh,
thanks for joining. I
Thanks
wanted
for having me.
to hear your thoughts on what you think this could mean. So the big picture storytelling elements in Hogwarts Legacy sequel, that they are kind of like coordinating them with some of the storylines that will play out in the Harry Potter HBO series.
Yeah, I think the key word here is coordinating. Because when I read this at first, I feared the worst because it feels in some way like they because I assume you already talked about the whole it's tying into the HBO series and that's going to be a retelling of the books. So we're getting
Yes.
Harry, Ron, and Hermione again. Awesome. So the most logical thing to do would then to make the games about the same thing, right?
Yeah.
And I'm personally not too excited about that. But there are other options, and that's why I think they're using the word coordinating is interesting, because it might also mean that it's not the entire story that needs to line up, but that there are some plot points from Hogwarts Legacy 2, if it's even going to be called that. But for now, let's just assume Hogwarts Legacy 2. That there are some story beats in that game that need to line up with story beats from the HBO series. And I think one thing they could do that would make a lot of sense is like make a sort of Voldemort themed prequel. So maybe you're at school in the years that Voldemort is there, because that would need to be something that they'd line up with the show. Um, and I think in general, like if you look at massive franchises like Star Wars, like Lord of the Rings, like Harry Potter, is they're trying to tie everything back to this main story, right? Even though you got like a giant world and we could go to different wizarding schools, it all ties back to the story of Harry versus Voldemort. So Voldemort is definitely a big part of that story that we could use some extra context and some extra background information for. But another one, and actually I forgot, I just remembered this because otherwise I would have mentioned it for the research for the Sunday vid as well. But there is another option, and that's another one that actually lines up with the research we did for Hogwarts Legacy, because there is a third very important person in the story of Harry Potter, and that's of course Dumbledore. And if I remember correctly, we did research on this, and your last year as like the student you play in the first Hogwarts Legacy, your last year at Hogwarts would be Dumbledore's first. So
Yeah.
that could also be a potential connection tie-in. And of course, if they are giving extra depth and background to Dumbledore's story, you would want to incorporate that in the series where he is the headmaster of Hogwarts. So again, I think there are a lot of options on things they could do, because again, they're talking about coordinating the story. I just hope it's not like, because we already have PS1 Hagrid and that's perfection. We don't need to touch that. So I hope they're not just doing a retelling of the
Yeah.
book, both in series and in the game. I hope they're doing something different that somehow connects back to
Yeah, because
the
I
series.
think Hogwarts Legacy worked really great because they had a lot of freedom in how they wanted to tell their part, their
Yeah,
history of the
exactly.
Hogwarts, and it's of course like Harry Potter has a fascinating story, but we just kind of moved away from the movie games where they are a retelling, and yeah, we've just seen that it doesn't really matter. Like what they basically want is that people go watch the series and then go play the game, and to have some sort of connection, of course, between the two. And I
Hmm.
think that is, yeah, a good idea. But what we've seen with all these TV shows and all these games is that it actually works better if the show, like if the game is just set in the same universe, that's already enough, and again works actually
Yeah,
better.
like
Like
Fallout, for example,
yeah,
where it was
or
like a
Witcher.
completely different story, but it was set in the same universe.
Yeah, exactly, and of course for The Witcher that was the case as well, and
Hmm.
like I think actually The Last of Us is less fun because you're basically beat for beat replaying that TV show, so you already kind of know the twists and turns and everything. So
Yeah, so either you watch the TV show and you're spoiling the game, or you're playing the game and you're spoiling the TV show, but
yeah,
there's no way around it. Yeah,
Cyberpunk is another example, of course, with the anime that, of course, did very well, and then people jumped
yeah,
into Cyberpunk. Like people just want to exist in that world, and the video games are able to provide that experience. So I hope they understand that instead of forcing in some sort of like I can see the C-suite because again, Warner is desperate right now. I can see them be okay. We wanna get as much synergy possible, and we have these huge franchises. Let's make it work. While Hogwarts Legacy worked because they got a ton of freedom and they were kind of left alone by other like tentacles from this huge corporation. So we will have to wait and see. But yeah, thanks for the insights. I mean, I hope it's like one of the two things you mentioned because. And actually, if it's like the Dumbledore part, then they could stay way closer to because then you could still have characters
yeah. It
from part one
it
in
could
this
be a
game as
direct
well.
sequel.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. I still hope for a because that's why I'm like, okay, they're still gonna do DLC, but if the sequel is then also very close to to the first game, I'm kind of like, okay, but why didn't we go to a different school, right? That would have always been my kind of dream game where they would leave Hogwarts behind and finally shed some light on what is it like to go to a different wizarding school in a completely different country. But seems like that's at least not what's gonna happen.
yeah. No, I absolutely agree. That's the more interesting thing they could do. But if you look at, there's another quote like later in the article that kind of also had me concerned, where one of the people from Warner compares it to like how many different people have played Batman, saying he hopes in times fans will wind up asking one another, what Harry are you? And I'm like, let's not do that, man. Not for the game at very least.
Yeah, here.
But I don't.
Yeah, the Dark Knight has remained a cool character for more than 75 years. How many different Batmans are there? He says. In time, he hopes fans will be wind up asking one another, "What Harry are you?"
Yeah. Are you Hogwarts Legacy too, Harry Potter? Because I hope that's not going to be a thing.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
it
yeah,
does kind of worry me that they're banking so hard on
Harry.
specifically Harry Potter, because I think there are a ton of interesting things about the Wizarding World. I don't think Harry Potter is the most interesting one of them. I think there are far more interesting topics and locations and stories to revisit than constantly doing this one. But we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, we totally have to wait and see. But this is where really what happens when you are kind of like you want to play it safe, and then you just go back.
Yeah,
to what
exactly.
worked. And I hope that they realize that. I mean, Hogwarts Legacy still sold 40 million. It's crazy. That's a huge success.
And we only got Harry's glasses in the summer DLC. What, a year later?
Exactly.
It doesn't matter. You can leave him out. It's okay.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, thanks Dennis for joining, and I will look at the chat for a bit and then move on to different topics. So take care, and we will.
Will do. Thanks for having me again.
We will hear you later.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye. Okay, I saw some people say we don't see Dennis. Yeah, that would be a thing for next time to show him as well. I know, but I thought it was like easier to do it like this. But yeah, let us play when Voldemort was a student, says Joseph. That would be a cool one. Yeah, for sure. That would be very interesting, and I think make the most sense with like a tie-in to that story. I think Dumbledore would be kind of less exciting. Dennis is actually under your chair. He isn't connected online to live. Did you really think he was connecting live? No. Dennis, you can leave. He got under the table now, and I will kick him out after the stream. I'm surprised Suicide Squad did not come to PS Plus or Game Pass, Robo Wizzo. Yeah, at one point it will. It totally will. But maybe after they launch like the offline mode or something. Like by the end of the year, we will probably be at the end of the Suicide Squad. Post-launch. And then I would not be surprised if they will try a complete edition with an offline mode. And then, they have all the seasons in one package. And then try and sell that. And then they will take some money from Microsoft and Sony. Because it will be a great PS Plus game to just at least play through that 10-hour campaign. I think that's more than worth your time.